All right, guys, so here's a look at what we are going to do today. If I hover over this SVG graphic, this really cool sort of looping holographic logo cutout starts occurring. All right, so what's basically happening is, or what's going to happen in this tutorial, I'm going to show you exactly how to create this. And by the way, it's isometric for added bonus. This isometric illustration in Illustrator, and then we're going to export the SVG code, paste it into an HTML document, and then use CSS to create this animation that's occurring right here. All right, and it's based on user interaction, such as a hover. And also, it looks really interesting. It's see-through and transparent in a sense because we're adding a blend mode to it to make it look really cool. All right, so there's a lot packed into this tutorial. Hopefully you enjoy it. Today's question is, how do you charge clients if you're working on a project, per hour or per project? And this is assuming, of course, you're a freelancer of some sort. All right, so go ahead and state what you personally prefer to do in the comments along with an explanation. All right, so before we begin, make sure you subscribe here. The channel has been exploding lately, making me really happy, and I've increased my content production. So let's keep it up and let's get started. All right, guys, so we're going to get started here in Adobe Illustrator. I would say that you can use any other vector application, but we are going to be using a specific feature here in Illustrator that may not be available in other vector apps, and that's going to be 3D extrude. So just keep that in mind. So I'm just going to leave it at 1000 by 700. We'll be changing this manually later. All right, so just to give a little bit of context here. Again, this is for a fictional VPN service or virtual private network service. And basically, that's just, I did a real quick mock-up here of just kind of like a fictional landing page. And it's a VPN services, it's something to keep you anonymous online. That's what I came up with. And so the idea is to have some type of illustration right here in this section. All right, so all I've done is just taken this background color, and you'll see what that is momentarily. I'm just going to put in a rectangle for the background, and then we'll go ahead and change that fill here to, the color code is 282A2C if you want to follow along. We're actually not going to be using this or including it in the SVG because we want it to be transparent, but still I want to see what, roughly what the background is going to be while we do this illustration. Okay, so let me get rid of the stroke real quick here. All right, sweet, and let's go ahead and we'll open up the layers and we'll make this path something we can't select. Okay, so just a few days ago, or last week, I did an isometric tutorial here using Adobe Illustrator. And this is going to be isometric. However, we're not going to use that grid and that process of creating the grid to do it. We're going to use the 3D tools here in Illustrator. So you'll see how that works momentarily. There are some advantages and disadvantages to it, and I'll describe those as we go along. So my idea, going back here to this, where is it? There it is. For this landing page in this service, and in order to give it context, you want your illustration or whatever you have here, especially it's going to be on this side or whatever. It's an illustration. It's a focal point. They're going to see it. You want it to have context and relevancy in terms of whatever the service is about. In this case, it's being anonymous. Usually, it's when people are using a browser. So I thought, okay, we could use a browser, and we'll have a fictional logo of some sort that kind of when it's hovered over, the logo kind of fills a gap in the browser. So it's kind of like I don't know. It's just an interesting play on the concept of what this service provides. All right. So we're going to start off by creating a rounded rectangle for a browser. All right. So we'll choose the rounded rectangle tool here by left clicking and dragging out. And I'm just going to set it up, something like that. I'm just going to eyeball. It doesn't have to be exact. All right. And then so for the color, I'm just going to use a lighter shade of blue. So let's go ahead and go to fill, and That's a little bit too saturated, I think. Actually, you could probably come over here, choose one of these. Still not good. I think right around there might be pretty good. Okay. So then what I also want to do is we'll have just, we'll fill it out and make it so it's more obvious that it's a browser, with kind of like a couple buttons and a URL bar up here. So to do that, I'll just hit Control C, Control F. That'll copy what we currently have. And right now, if you go to Window and Properties, or wait, no, sorry, Transform. There it is. If your strokes and effects was checked off, then, or scale corners rather was checked off, then it wouldn't have behaved the same. But we can always just readjust them with these little icons here to adjust the border radius. All right, so we want this to be a little bit smaller, actually. Something, right around there looks good. And so then we'll give it some color. I think I'm just going to make it white. And yeah, I think I like that. I was going to bring the opacity down, but that's fine. So Control C, Control F. All right, and I'm just holding Shift and dragging it out, and now I'm letting go of everything. All right, so that right there is what we don't want. We don't want to scale corners. We want it to maintain the same corners, so we're going to check that off. All right, and it's just something like that, extremely simple. So now at this point, before, we don't want to extrude it. We want the whole thing to be designed and how it's going to be in final form before we do this 3D isometric perspective on it. So my idea is to have a cutout. So we're going to use the Pathfinder right here. You can go to Window, Pathfinder to find it. And this allows you to do a bunch of different things, which you'll see in a second. So what we want to do is create that fictional logo of sorts. I showed it to you briefly over here. I'll recreate it though. This little thing, it's just, I don't know, some random concept I came up with, and we're gonna drag these up. It'll have slight rounded corners like that. Yeah, that's good. And then I'll go ahead and Control C, Control F. We'll make this one bigger, something like that. And then Control C, Control F the original, and just put it down here. Ta-da, you have your logo. Not much thought into it. Actually, you know what? No, we'll leave it like that, because I was going to do something to round off. I wonder what that would look like, by the way. I'm sorry. I just have to do this. If I take these all, merge them, and go to File, Scripts, round any corner. This little thing over here shows up, preview. Ooh, that's kind of cool. Oh, anyhow, I don't want to do that. So, but by the way, that scripts is they're Adobe Illustrator CC scripts. If you just type it in Google, you'll find this free one that has all the ones that I just had. All right, so anyhow, let's continue on. Now at this point, we're just going to unite these. So with all three of the shapes selected, they're now a single path. And I'm going to just leave this here. Control C, Control F, and scale it up holding Shift. And then we want the rough size, of where we want it to be placed. I'll make this a little bit bigger. Yeah, right around there is pretty good. That's where the cutout's going to be. So holding Shift. Oh, by the way, is this okay? Good. We just want this single path here, and then this path, holding Shift to select both, and then just choose minus front, because this is currently in front of that. So it just cuts that out. When that happens, though, it takes the new compound path that it created and puts it at the very top of the layer. So just drag it back down, and we have that there. Oh, God, no. I didn't realize that was kind of off center. There we go. Do that again. Drag it back down. Damn it, you. All right, cool. All right, so this is the final shape, I guess you could say. I'm going to back up one more time. I'm sorry. I'm going to create a copy of that with Control C, Control F, and then just hide the top one. And then do this again because I wanted to create a copy of exactly where it's at right here. Yeah, this thing right there. That way we have the same exact size. That's important for this process, as you'll find out here shortly. So now we have these two different things going on here. Let's go ahead and we'll group these together. So these paths up here will be grouped. And then let's go ahead and go to Effect, 3D, Extrude and Bevel. All right, now this is the fun stuff. So if I hit Preview, it's just going to give us some type of off-axis position. But if you come down here, you'll see we have isometric left, right, top, and bottom. So let's just choose left, and there you go. It's in perfect isometric perspective based on these angles that I have applied to it. All right, so the extrude depth, it's quite thick. I actually might want something around 7. Yeah, maybe 9. All right, that looks good to me. Actually, no, it doesn't. 12. Okay, I like that. And then if you want to adjust the color, it became quite dark, and that's because of the lighting. And you can experiment with some of these other options on your own, but if you hit more options, you have the lighting section. So if you take this little square/circle thing and just drag it over there, there you go. I think that looks much better. So once you're happy with it, and you can experiment with all this different stuff if you want on your own, we'll go ahead and hit OK. Now we're going to do the same thing for this logo. So we're going to go to Effect and then just apply it. And there you go. It's ready to go. And you'll see it will fit exactly in there. That's why I backed up and created that copy. As you can notice, though, when we hover over this, we could see the path. For some reason, the original path is showing up. And that's because the 3D effect is still applied, and we can go back and make modifications to it. But we're going to want to go ahead and kind of just create... Well, basically, it's called expanding the appearance once we're happy with it. That's what we want to do. So we're going to take both of these, Object, Expand Appearance, and there we go. Now, you may be wondering yourself, why not just do this from scratch every time instead of using that previous method from a week ago where we're just kind of creating everything by ourselves without 3D tools? Well, when you have especially rounded corners like this, I'm going to get up here real quick, real close rather. You see we have all these paths that it creates, and if we're using SVG, which contains actual code, that's a lot of code that you're dealing with here. So what I want to do, instead of leaving these here, and you could, I mean, it's not like it's a massive file, but it would be several kilobytes. What we can do is take all of this stuff, like on the edges, here, here, and here, and we're going to simplify them by joining them. So we will lose some of the color associated with it, but that's fine. It'll still work and look well, or look good. All right, so what we need to do first, if we select this, we can see everything is currently a part of a group. We're going to right-click in Ungroup. Okay, we're going to right-click and ungroup again. So now we just have this space right here. It's a group too, but there's only a path in there. And so what we want to do is I'm going to go ahead and just lock this layer so we can't select it. So this front face is now locked. We're going to take everything right here, and then we're going to go to Unite. All right, so now it's much more simplified, and trust me, when I first did this for the preparation of this tutorial that I'm doing, I didn't do this process. I left all that stuff in there, and it was a massive amount of SVG code to put in the index HTML. So that's why I'm doing this. It's going to simplify the code greatly. It's going to be a lot less. All right, so it still looks good, especially because we're going to be applying a mixed blend mode in CSS. And so, yeah, let's go ahead and do the same process that we just did for the other stuff. So one thing that's interesting is you can notice when I select this, it also extruded, you know, each individual, these two toolbar things up here, which this is all code that would be baked into the SVG file that we don't need. So we have a little bit of work to do, just the same process. So I'm going to right click on group, ungroup. Okay, so now, what is this anyhow? Just kind of, all right, cool. So now I can take this and we're going to lock that. I may even hide it. There we go. So I'll take both of these because we want these. We're going to lock those as well. All right. So now we have almost everything that we're going to want here. So let's see here. How can I select this easily? Can I do this? I never used this tool before, so yes, I can. So that way, if I tried to use it with this simple square selection, it's going to select all this other stuff, which I don't want. So we're going to unite that. All right, great. And all right, so how can I separate these? This is one big section actually right here. You know, let me see here. See if I could select this. All right, we can use the magic wand tool, but we can change the settings, hopefully. Where are the settings at for this thing? So we can control tool options. Where are you at? Oh, of course it can't be simple. All right, well, what I can do is we'll find where these layers are at, and I'm going to simply hide them just by selecting. So for now, I'll just group them. What I need to do is create a selection out of just this stuff, so that's why I'm kind of being concerned, or not concerned, but we'll group that. We're going to group this. Let's see here, Control G. This is tedious. I did not like this, but that's okay. Hide that as well. Oh, one more thing over here. We'll hide that. Okay. So now we can just take with this selection tool here. I'm just going to drag it around this, and it's not going to select the white part. It's just the blue part because these are locked. And then just group those. Oh, finally. Now I can hide this one, and we can bring back the other stuff that we just did. So bringing these all back. All right, great. So now we can create a selection around all of these and then group those. Actually, they don't even need group. Let's just delete the damn things. There we go. Okay. So I'm going to unlock some of these and bring back, yep, everything that we need. So now the code is greatly reduced. We could still do a little bit of setup that's going to make our lives easier when it comes to the CSS process, though. So see, we have all these paths right here. To make your life a little bit easier, you could rename each of these based on what is being selected. But really, we just want this one in its own group. So select it all, Control G, and then we're going to rename this group to browser. All right. Then we're going to take this, and that's a path in a group. We're going to group it. This is going to be logo. All right. So what's going to happen is when we export this or we grab the SVG code, it's going to have an ID attached to this groups from the SVG code. One will be logo and the other one will be browser. All right, so let's get this into place roughly in terms of where we actually want it to begin. And we'll say, I guess, we'll say like right around there will be pretty good. Like that's where it will begin. All right, and then we'll use the transition property with translate X and Y to push this into place, and as well as other things. So, all right. Once you have that ready to go, we can go ahead, make sure you save it on your desktop as an actual AI file somewhere. And then we are going to, let's use our artboard tool down here, and we're just going to scale this in. All right, I'm just giving myself maybe like a pixel or 2 or 3 away from the edges. Ooh, what happened? There we go. Something happened. I think the mouse let go or something. All right. And then we don't need this anymore, this rectangular background, so I can just delete that. All right, and there we go. So at this point, let's go ahead and go to Save As. And we're going to change this to SVG. All right, and then I'm just going to name it Browser. Now, what's going to happen is I'm not actually saving this as an SVG file. You can if you wish. What I really am interested in is just the SVG code. All right, so this is the SVG code of the entire thing. A bunch of zeros and ones, it looks like, essentially. But you can see our group of ID browser right there. And then if we search far enough, which I'm not sure if I can identify it. Yep, GID, the ID is logo right here. All right, so we're going to copy all of that. So Control C for those of you who don't know how to copy yet. And then we're going to open, or yeah, I guess I'll do this. Where'd it go? There it is. Let's go ahead and CD code. This is where I store my projects at. And then I'll just go, we'll make a directory called VPN SVG, and then CD into VPN SVG. Code, period, to launch Visual Studio Code, my code editor. It's free and very popular from Microsoft. All right, so let's go ahead. The usual stuff, if you've been following me, an index.html. We'll do a main CSS. We'll hit the exclamation point, hit enter, create some boilerplate, type in link, hit enter, and main.css. Okay. All right, so now with that still copied, we're going to go ahead and paste that sucker in. Control B to get rid of that sidebar. So there we go. It's still not too bad. The style right here, we're just going to copy all of these. It's not too bad, but I don't want them in the HTML. So I'm going to get rid of all that stuff. We can get rid of this XML stuff up there. And everything right now is wrapped in an SVG element within the body element. So that's just something worth noting or remembering here. So we'll save this, we'll go to main, and then just paste all that stuff in like that. All right, so at this point, if you right click, open with live server, this is what it looks like. It's absolutely terrible because by default SVGs scale up. So let's go ahead and start working on this and making it look like we want. So the very first thing we're going to do is reference our body in HTML. Let me scale this up one more time. Make sure you guys can see it. Height 100%. And the reason we're doing height 100% is when we're going to create a CSS grid out of this. And if we want to center, I want to center at least the SVG graphic in the browser, we need to set the height to 100%. Margin 0 and any padding 0. All right, and then we're going to reference the body specifically. All right, so we're going to put in a background, and we'll do 282 A2C, and that's that same color that we used as the background for the path in Photoshop, or Illustrator rather. And then we'll put in a width of 100%, a display grid, So the CSS grid's new kid on the block when it comes to layouts. Search my channel to learn more about it. This is a grid template columns here, property. Just I'm going to put at auto. That's the CSS grid stuff as well. And then also, let's save it first. And it's still going to be large, I think, because we haven't, we haven't done anything to it. So now let's reference our SVG specifically. Let's just make it a flat 300 static pixels. Align self, center, and this is the grid stuff working here. So we're saying align self and justify self to the center horizontally and vertically. All right, so I'm going to put a margin left as well of 500 pixels. There we go. Awesome. At this point, I remember that XD, the idea was to have, you know, everything kind of the illustration showing up right here on the damn right side. I can't talk. I'm not actually going to do all the HTML for this. So a real quick way of doing like a whole mock-up process is just to take everything in Adobe XD, put it in a group, and then export it as a SVG file. All right, so SVG, and then you want to put that wherever. We'll call this BG2. Wait, no, this. Okay, there we go. Select folder, export. Group 3 already exists. Maybe I will provide this file for you. Although I don't understand why you would want it. It's not really that pertinent to the tutorial and the topic of the tutorial. Now I'm going to open up my files here. All right, I'm going to go back here, Control B, and I'm just going to drag that SVG that was created. It's called Group 3. It's massive. This is just for the purpose of demonstrating this little technique, though. Let's go ahead and rename this. I'll just call it BG SVG. We'll go back to our main CSS, and we're going to reference that in our background property. So right after here, you don't have to do this, by the way. Just doing it just to give it some context. All right, no repeat. Background position is top right. So now, hopefully, there we go. Now it looks, you know, it's a very simple landing page. You can't, it's all SVG. You can't use the damn thing. All right, so now let's go ahead and work on this SVG. So there's a bunch of things that we need to do, although most of our work's almost done, actually. So what we're going to do is we're going to make it so that when a user hovers over the whole SVG canvas, not just a specific element like the browser in it, but the whole thing, we're going to make that front logo animate. All right, so to do that, let's go ahead and give ourselves some space. To do that, it'll be SVG, hover. So we'll reference our front. Wait, is that what I called it? No, I didn't. It's actually logo, I believe. Control F, logo. Yep, right here, the logo. And by the way, if you ever forget like what you named things, or you're trying to find a name or a way to access something in the website, then if you go back to your site here real quick, Control-Shift-I, you can just take this little button right here, start hovering over elements, and it'll tell you the name right here. So if you click on it, it'll show you where it's at. So this path, that's not it. Start hovering. Eventually you'll find what's responsible for whatever it is you want to adjust. Browser right there. Okay, just a quick tip. All right, so now this logo, what we're going to say is we're going to add different animation properties to it. So we'll say animation. I'm going to show you a shorthand method of this, and then first I'm going to show you each individual property. So animation duration, we'll say 1.2 seconds. We'll say animation name, got to give it a name, so we'll just call it animate logo. And then we'll say animation iteration count, and we'll say infinite. So we want this to loop forever for as long as the mouse is hovered over it. We'll do animation direction, and this will be alternate so that it will go back and forth automatically from between the from and to position, as you'll see in a second. And we're going to add the mixed blend mode right here, but not right now. All right. So right now it won't animate because we haven't defined the keyframes for animate logo. So let's do that. So at keyframes, we'll say animate logo. And you can do multi-step animations with percentage-based values, but I only want to go from and to. So we'll just say from, transform, translate X 0. So we're basically saying start from the regular starting position. All right, so translate Y, and that'll be 0 as well. And we're also going to make the opacity 0. So by default, it'll be hidden. They won't see that logo. And that's just the choice I'm deciding to make. You don't have to do it like that. Transform, translate X 25 pixels, and then translate Y -23 pixels. And -23, when I first did this tutorial and I created it from scratch, 23 seemed to align better with the cutout. All right, so I will say opacity 1 here. All right, let's see if it works. Damn thing better work. All right, so that's cool. One thing that's definitely different is it's not going closer. All right, and it's also not being hidden, and I think I know why. Like when it's let me see here. Let me refresh. Yeah, it's not hidden by default, and that's because I don't have it set. So what we need to do is reference the logo and set it at opacity 0. It wouldn't work here because it only works on hover. So yeah, go back. Now it's hidden. Like that. Awesome. Okay, so now let's add, well, actually, let's fix this. It's a little bit too far away from that hole. So I'm going to try 40. All right, I'm pretty happy with that right there. All right, awesome. So you could just leave it like this. It's a cool effect, but in a recent tutorial, covered mixed blend mode. So mixed blend mode, if we apply it to the logo, which I think we could apply it here to just the logo selector as well. And this will change, it will give it the same kind of behavior, like in Photoshop layers, for instance, where you can change the blend mode. So we could change it to overlay. And look how cool that is. And what's also to know, you don't have to make this so that's only hover based. You could just apply this directly on to the SVG, the animation, and it would work by default. It would just, a person wouldn't have to hover over it. But I thought it'd be interesting just to do it that way. Kind of scaling up the browser so we can see this even better. How awesome. All right, so hopefully you guys learned a lot through this. It's really funny. It's really fun creating these illustrations that can then become interactive. And I think it's a really cool way that can spice up a landing page. All right, guys, hopefully you enjoyed that and found value in it. And make sure you subscribe here. And also don't forget, today's question is, do you charge per hour or per project when dealing with design or development clients? All right, I'll see you guys real soon. Goodbye.